get close. She's here and she's going strong. Maria Sanchez, this is the show, darling. She'll...
Welcome to the Maria Sanchez Show on KADYTV.com. We apologize for the delay. It is live television. We are rewriting the rules of broadcast local television. And so just like in the old days, which I'm sure most of you were too young to remember, sets would fall, gaffes would occur, fumfers would happen. That's what happens when it's live. Now, we're doing everything we can to make sure it doesn't happen, believe me, but sometimes it does, and technology sometimes isn't perfect, and unfortunately that was the case just now, so just hang in there with us. We appreciate your time. It's Wednesday, that must mean, it's Scott Harris time, so we have Scott Harris in the studios with us. Scott, thanks for joining us, as always.
It's an absolute pleasure. Love live television, by the way. Yeah. Much more entertaining,
yeah.
Much more fun.
And so Scott has taken the time to visit with us. We have visited, this is like our fourth time?
Third or fourth time, yeah, absolutely.
We talked about the propositions, and then today what we're going to do pretty much is the postmortem on the election results. And Scott's biggest focus and passion is state and national politics, but of course we would be remiss if we didn't talk about Ventura County politics, because of course, we're about the county.
For the county and by the county.
There you go.
I'm like a walking logo.
Scott did it. So what we'd like to do first, if you don't mind, is talk about the numbers of voters.
Sure.
And we have information specifically about Ventura County. I don't know if you know about the state or the...
I know a little bit, but I don't have it memorized. So if it was possible, we could throw it up on the screen. That would be fantastic. We can take a look at that together.
Yes, and so if we can show that first one, which is voter registration and turnout, there we have, and again, that is Ventura County. Now, I had heard, based on Mark Lund's, who's the county clerk recorder registrar,
the brand new county clerk recorder,
that they were saying about 55% in the county, but the numbers that I looked at today looked like more like 30% of registered voters.
You know what, I'm going to have to plead ignorance on this. I did not double check yet. I usually like to wait until a couple of days after and then start taking a look, because that's what happens, is you get these numbers and they stick in your head and then new numbers come out, and so I kind of want to take a peek and see. But yeah, it's always a fascinating thing, because for those of us who are involved in this and love it and are passionate, the idea of not voting never enters our head.
Absolutely.
You look forward to it, it's like
right.
A great party, you're excited. So when you run into people go, oh yeah, I didn't vote, it just seems so odd to me. And so to find out that somewhere between a half and 2/3 of people who could have voted didn't is just shocking to me.
Well, in fact, I was on last night. Normally I stay away from the electronic stuff version, because I kind of like to make my own and go to my own sources and figure it out myself. But last night I decided, you know what, I'm just going to be passive and I'm going to let the information come to me. That meant I was doodling a little bit on Facebook, and that was one of somebody's posts is, I did not vote, and I was like, you're going to advertise that?
And you find people that take pride in it.
Yes.
And generally I find also they're the ones that then want to bellyache.
Right.
They're the ones that want to complain about how things are going. And as cliche as it is, I have no interest in talking to you. You have an absolute right to not vote, but then I have a right to not listen to you. You know, it just doesn't matter to me anymore what your views are on anything, because you don't bother. And I get that there's weak candidates. I think this election, more than any other statewide election that I can remember, I found more people voting against somebody than for somebody. If you look at the gubernatorial race, for example, I didn't find a lot of people that were passionate in favor of Jerry Brown or Meg Whitman. There were some, of course. But I found more people couldn't stand the idea of Jerry Brown, so they voted for Meg Whitman, or couldn't stand the idea of Meg Whitman, so they voted for Jerry Brown, and that's a sad thing.
What do you call the lesser of two evils?
Yeah, and you know what? I think we're all kind of getting tired of that, you know, and I mean, we can talk about, you know, my thoughts on why both parties are running the kind of candidates they do. I think each party takes a dramatically different approach to how they select their candidates. But in the end, I find that the good people of California aren't overly enthused about the people who are running. There wasn't a candidate at the statewide level, in my view, that generated passion among the voters, a Democrat or Republican. And of course the others, the Greens and the Independents and the Libertarians and stuff, they just don't get enough play to generate that kind of passion. But there wasn't somebody out there that, President Obama, then Senator Obama, got people excited.
Right.
Sarah Palin, it got people excited on both sides of the aisle, by the way.
Right,
She got
right.
people passionately
Well,
hating her.
let's say this, polarized.
Exactly, but passionately polarized. I'll take that. I'd rather somebody hated me than was indifferent.
Right.
So, and we don't have that in California in our current crop of statewide elected officials. And it's kind of been a while since we have. Governor Schwarzenegger did a little bit when he was a candidate, but it's because he was a celebrity. He was a movie star.
Right.
They weren't excited, in my view, about the idea of him being governor as much as they were he's a movie star and we can have some fun with that.
Of course, we did that with Reagan, right?
We did do that with Reagan, but Reagan was a long-time politician. I mean, he was an actor, of course, but he was a long-time politician before he ran for president, even before he ran for governor. So he paid his dues. He didn't wake up one morning and say, oh, you know what, I don't have a good script, I think I'll run for office.
Well, one of the things that I would like to focus on, and maybe you can help us in that, is getting people to register to vote and then getting them to vote. And so we spoke with Mark Lund because he visited with us in studio on Monday of this week, as if the man didn't have enough to do. He was here the day before the elections.
Hey, nobody turns down an invitation to the Maria Sanchez show.
Really grateful.
I've redone my schedule around this.
But I said what we'd like to do is, and he's going to give us wheres, but we're going to go at least once a month to one city in the county and hold a broadcast and registration drive. And
Well-
regardless of, no bounty and all that stuff, and whatever parties you want to enroll in or register for, and then at least you've got more of the people registered, and then hopefully they will continue that passion to vote.
You might actually not be pleased with my response.
Okay.
So I guess we're live, so you're stuck with your viewers seeing this, but I'm not a huge fan of that
Okay.
myself. I think one of the dangers that we have, like the rock the vote stuff, before the presidential elections,
Right.
is you get an awful lot of uneducated people who are voting. They sign up at the last minute, it's a party, you get a concert, you get a t-shirt, life is good, your girlfriend tells you how to vote, and off you go. I think that and I've had this debate, by the way, with Deborah Bowen a couple of times, who's Secretary of State, who handles this at a statewide level. And her whole focus is on getting as many people as possible to register and as many people as possible to vote. I believe that the focus should be on educating people so that then they're motivated to vote. If you're educated about the impact of propositions or about which party's going to be in charge of the state or of Congress, and I think then you're naturally going to vote because you're going to understand the implications. So I think we're a little bit backwards in the way that we go about things, which is we believe it's a great thing if we get someone to fill out the paper and turn it in, and that's all fine. But if they're not educated, then they're not motivated. And even if they do vote, how legitimate is that vote? I understand it counts, and I get the legalities of it, and I understand all of that. But I believe that the way to get a great electorate is to educate people about what's going on out there, about who's running and what it means, what propositions are running and what it means. And I'm not exactly sure how to do that, but to me, then the registration and the voting would take care of itself.
Well, I suppose we could implement both plans.
Absolutely.
Get them, get them registered so that then they're qualified, and then get them educated. So a two-part
Yes,
system.
absolutely.
But I'm also a proponent for, if you aren't educated on a specific issue or proposition or candidate, skip it. I
I'm
actually refrained from one of the propositions myself.
Did you really?
I did.
And I found this
21.
time,
I just couldn't decide. I thought 18
but I thought I
bucks
shared
is
with
no
you how to
biggie.
vote. I thought I was clear on that.
You illuminated it, yes. But
I thought I wasn't allowed to
decided-
give my opinion.
Yeah, I wasn't passionate enough one way or the other, and I just skipped over.
You know what section gets the least number of votes every time?
What?
Judges. Because people who feel the way you do, people who think, well, if I don't know something about it, maybe I shouldn't vote. Most of us don't know much about judges. And so they either vote for incumbents or they don't vote. And I know an awful lot of people that are very passionate about politics that don't vote for judges.
Well, and I guess what, that's what I'm saying, is to give somebody permission or forgiveness
Yes.
or absolvement, if the word.
Well, yeah,
is-
I'd rather that somebody was educated on 2 propositions and 1 statewide
Right,
office and there was somebody,
right.
and voted on 5 things than
Right.
didn't vote at all.
I don't think people realize that, though.
That they have the option to do that.
I'm
There's so-
sure on some level they do, but they think, well, then what's the point of voting if I'm not voting on everything?
Right. Well,
So-
see, our education process begins right here at
Right here, right.
KDYTV at the Maria Sanchez Show.
So what we're gonna do is we are gonna take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're gonna blow through the city council on each city in the county so that you can see for yourself who is the winner or the votes and et cetera, et cetera. And again, our information is only as current as the county is allowing. And then we'll go through the state offices and the propositions as well. You're watching KADYTV.com. By the way, if you have a suggestion for us, there's a contact us icon. Please feel free to send in any topic or person that you might want us to get to know. We'll be right back. The Maria Sanchez Show is about the county, by the county, and for the county. Whether we are simulcasting from the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library, checking in with the leaders of our communities, hearing from our elected officials, helping to promote public safety, preparedness, and wellness. We are here for the needs of Ventura County. The Maria Sanchez Show is also about entertainment and events. Sharing information, creating awareness, and supporting those in need. Join us as we rewrite the rules of local television on The Maria Sanchez Show at www.kadytv.com. Welcome back to The Maria Sanchez Show. Thank you for taking the time to visit with us. We are a work in progress, so you are entitled to your opinions, and if we're falling short, let us know. But just know that we know that we're about 85%, so that's the good news. So, and we still are hanging under the radar a little bit. That's by design. So feel free to tell your friends, but know that we're developing, shall we say.
Quickly.
So we've got Scott Harris in studio. Scott is our political correspondent. We are going to show the city council as the county, whatever that site is, .gov.
Yeah,
That's our resource.
Which is a great site.
And we're going to put, so just if you don't mind, put up, maybe give 3 seconds to each of the cities, and then we'll continue our conversation about assembly and congressional and et cetera. So we'll start alphabetically. Camarillo and Fillmore and Moore Park and Ojai and Oxnard, Port Hueneme, Santa Paula, Simi Valley, Thousand Oaks,
You need a little song so you can remember all 10 cities in order.
and the Oxnard Harbor. I knew that, that's how I know the Greek alphabet. Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, Zeta,
So we have to rename the cities so that they fit the...
Theta, Iota, Lambda, Captain, Nu. Okay, we're not gonna get into the congressional yet, so this is still city councils. I can't even read that far. Okay, cool. All right, so there you go. And probably the city that you're in that you kind of know. Although, Scott, prior to us being live, you mentioned that it's still a little close in Thousand Oaks.
Well, I think it's done. I think Dennis Gillette took the third spot. It was very close. I mean, it was back and forth.
Between
Al Adams and Dennis.
And
it
I
was,
heard 200 votes.
at one point, it was less than 50.
Really?
Yeah, it was very, very tight.
So if you don't think that your vote doesn't count, think again.
It does count. It
Yeah.
really does. And I mean, there are times when it doesn't, and I get that. And in the end, you look at it, you say, oh, look, there was 600,000 difference between the gubernatorial candidates, so what does it matter if I voted or not? But it does matter here. It matters at these levels. It matters at the community college district level, and you mentioned Port Hueneme and the water
harbor.
district, the harbor district. Those things, they make a difference. And when you're down to 50 people on who's going to be the 5th city council person in the city of Thousand Oaks, yeah, it does make a difference. It really does.
Yeah.
So, but it looks like all 3 incumbents held their seats.
So that's Andy Fox and...
And Claudia, she got
Bill
like 7
De La
last
Peña.
names, so
Yeah.
yeah, whatever it is.
All right, so let's talk about congressional District 23 and 24.
Okay, what, we have that up there?
We've got congressional 23 and then 24, if we can see those slides. There we go. And It would be Lois Capson and Elton.
Okay.
Gallagher,
Well,
the
Elton,
incumbents.
Elton's automatic. I mean, he just keeps on winning, and to the absolute frustration of of his opponents. And they run somebody different every year against him, and he just keeps on winning. 24 years he's been there, and
he garnered like over 60% of the.
oh yeah, yeah. I think it's possible that some of the ballots come pre-printed with his name checked. I mean, I think that's just they just printed them up in the '80s and said, we'll just go until we run out of these things. And the thing about Elton, I would say more than maybe any other elected official in Ventura County, with the possible exception of Greg Totten, is you absolutely know what you're going to get with Elton Gallagher. If you like it, keep on voting, and if you don't, and he even came out and said this last week. He said, you know what I stand for. If you don't like it, don't vote for me. Mm-hmm. Now, he has the comfort, of course, of being the incumbent in a predominantly Republican district, so you get to say that. But he, for better or for worse, he doesn't change. His priorities are the same, and he keeps on doing a good job. And Lois is very similar.
Yeah. Which I happen to like, though, because they're so different.
They are very
So
different. So in a way, our county is well represented in that you've got a place to go no matter where you fit on that spectrum. Because you're not going to get much further right than Elton, and you're not going to get much further left than Lois. And so, if you've got an idea that fits into either of those ideological camps, you've got somebody that can take care of business for you. What we don't have are moderates. California is just not a place that generates moderates. It might now with the redistricting, and we talked about that last week. Redistricting opens up the possibility for a moderate, whereas the gerrymandered districts, this didn't allow for it.
Well, and you're fast forwarding to the proposition, because that was
yes.
the one that did pass, which I was
right.
Personally happy to see.
So that's our teaser for Prop 20 and Prop 27, by the way. See, I'm learning television now. Come back after the break and we'll...
And then we had treasurer, tax collector. Both of those candidates did in-studio visits with us. It was Don Facciano and Stephen Hintz. And Stephen Hintz won for that position.
He did, and that was a good race and two good guys, and it got a little ugly at the end.
Right.
Don made some accusations about Steve, and Steve's response was silence,
right.
Which leads some people to believe that all of Don's accusations were true. It leads others to believe he wasn't going to dignify it, and it leaves a third group to say, based on the law, he wasn't allowed to respond. So I believe that Don absolutely believed what he was saying, but I think it was a mistake to say it. If you don't have anything where you can substantiate the claims, you really can't make them, in my view. And it was a close enough race. It was 6% difference, which means if 3% of the people change their minds, and from the people I spoke to, more than 3% of the people I know changed their minds about Don based on the accusations.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it would have been a coin toss. Don might have even slipped in a win if he hadn't had that press conference.
Really?
Yep.
If you're not familiar with what it is that Scott's referring to, we don't have to go into the details, but it was a suggestion that there had been some, perhaps, what would you say? I wasn't saying propriety, but it was
undue influence.
Okay, very modern, much better phrase.
Not bad, huh?
Yeah.
There we go.
And so, but then there wasn't any documentation made available as to.
There wasn't any
back up
available,
of the
and so at that point, then it's just an unsubstantiated rumor. And even if Don believes in his heart of hearts, which I believe that Don did, it doesn't make any difference. You don't have anything that you can show me.
Right.
So I just think it's inappropriate to stand there and say, I don't have any proof, but I know for a fact that Maria did this, and I need all of you to react as if you knew for a fact that Maria did this. Well, I don't know that.
Right.
So that was a tough thing. And I think, I don't know that Don would have won. It would have been much closer. It wouldn't have taken much to make a change in that race. So, but Steve Hintz is, as I understand, is a good guy, and I hope that he does a very good job for the county, because people like that rarely get voted out. So Steve's going to be there now pretty much as long as he wants to.
Well, so, and that was a race that hadn't been contested for like 20 years.
Yes.
Then we had the sheriff's race that hadn't been contested for 32 years,
yes,
I believe. So I wonder what that says about business as usual or politics as usual.
Well, I don't think that had nearly as much to do with political parties as some of the other things we're going to talk about today.
Right.
I mean, most of the people who follow county politics know, for example, where Sheriff Brooks is on the political spectrum, even though it's a nonpartisan race. But I don't think that had much to do with the battle that went on there between Dennis Carpenter and Jeff Dean. That was some sheriff department politics, and different people fell out on different sides of that fence, and then that part of it got ugly. The John O'Hintz thing wasn't ugly until Don came out with the accusations about Steve. And so I just think it was kind of the first time in a while we've had a couple of races that flared up and were interesting. Normally in the county, when you're elected to office, unless you're termed out, you keep your job.
And we also have the first woman to serve on the Harbor District, Marianne.
Yes, we do.
So,
Yes,
I mean,
we do.
it's been interesting. And we're gonna take a quick break and get right to the propositions when we come back. But one of the things that you were talking about is how the parties run their candidates. And my opinion is that because the primaries bring out the stalwarts, you have to speak to the core, and that's why they get these people who are not so moderate, because they have to be galvanizing.
Absolutely.
And they have to get people to want to vote for them, and they get the dyed-in-the-wool ones to vote, and then that's what we get in the general election.
Absolutely. You get the far-right conservatives and the far-left liberals, and then when you get to the general election, those are your only two choices.
Right.
The moderates have been long forgotten.
Yeah. It's amazing to think Jerry Brown is back again.
I've been asked not to give my opinion, so we need to go to a break.
A 72-year-old man, he's only the second oldest to, and that was the one that precedes him was 74, and that was in his last days of office. So in theory, he could definitely be I mean, if you had 8 years, that's.
Well, I didn't support him politically, but I hope he makes it through his term, so.
When you look at a 72-year-old man of his fitness and his acuity and his ability, it makes me think, 72 is not looking too bad.
You can agree with Jerry Brown or disagree with Jerry Brown, but the man is sharp as a tack. The man is very quick and very sharp and very well versed in an awful lot of things. And I have a lot of respect for that. I think that's fantastic.
And the wiener. So we'll get back to propositions and then to the other offices, because we still have Lieutenant Governor, Secretary of State, Controller, Treasurer, Attorney General, and Insurance Commissioner to discuss.
And assembly districts.
Oh, right, that too. 35, 37, 38, and 41. You're watching the Maria Sanchez Show with Scott Harris, our political correspondent. We'll be right back. The Maria Sanchez Show is about the county, by the county, and for the county. Whether we are simulcasting from the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library, checking in with the leaders of our communities, hearing from our elected officials, helping to promote public safety, preparedness, and wellness. We are here for the needs of Ventura County. The Maria Sanchez Show is also about entertainment and events. Sharing information, creating awareness, and supporting those in need. Join us as we rewrite the rules of local television on The Maria Sanchez Show at www.kadytv.com. Welcome back to the Maria Sanchez Show. As always, a pleasure to be with you. We thank you for the privilege of you taking the time to be with us. We have our political correspondent, Scott Harris, in studio with us. We're going to go right to the propositions, because that's obviously an effect that we're going to feel in a lot of regards.
Yes, we are, for a long time. These are some of the more significant propositions that we've dealt with as a state.
And here we get Governor Moonbeam in, and then Prop 19 no.
And he can't even get Prop 19 in. I'm thinking to myself, the one big advantage of getting Jerry Brown in there is, we can all be smoking dope at the corner, but we can't.
Yeah.
So, and you know what, it's not a surprise. I think I said before when we talked about Prop 19, it's my belief that if it was a simple referendum, do we believe that marijuana should be legal in the state of California and adults should be able to smoke marijuana like they smoke cigarettes or drink alcohol? I think the state would have passed it. But this is kind of a convoluted thing. If it had passed, the feds would have still been coming after us. Mm-hmm. As we talked about before, 458 different cities would have had to set up their own rules and regulations. It was just a convoluted mess. And so it was poorly written proposition. And
however, it's sometimes the bellwether for...
Absolutely.
And they said that they will definitely be back in 2 years.
Maybe
they'll clean it up.
It's like the same-sex marriage stuff. You kind of keep pushing. It's, you get these things out there. It's like, when women first started running for national office, the first few had to get beat. Right. Just like with blacks. They've got to get beat. Hispanics, they got to get beat. And they know that. And they're kind of throwing themselves against the rocks. And then pretty soon we don't really pay any attention anymore, and then gender doesn't matter, and then color doesn't matter, and those things go away, as they should. You know, when you look here at the state of California, we've got Nancy Pelosi as, well, until yesterday, was Speaker of the House, and we've got 2 women as senators, and it's a non-issue. It doesn't come up. And if you look this year, both women running, or both candidates running for Senate were women, and one of the 2 gubernatorial. You know, and it was never an issue. You never saw it as a headline because we don't care anymore.
Right.
20 years ago, that would have been the whole headline, and it would have been what's she wearing and how's her hair and on and on and on. And now it's just like, you know, I don't care that she's a woman. She's just a terrible candidate. You know, no matter what, whoever you were supporting. So that's an interesting thing. With Prop 19, we beat it, and we beat it because historically people get more conservative as they get closer to the ballot box. So 2 months out, this was showing, hey, it's going to pass. People like it. You want to smoke dope, have a good time, let's go. But you have to know that you're going to lose speed as you get closer and closer and closer. And we did, you know, and we lost speed. And in the end, it was big. It was 54-46, which doesn't sound like it, but that's a big number. And so we just decided in the end that we really don't want, a friend of mine was saying, was on television yesterday on a different and very far inferior show than this, was saying that, you know, what he felt was parents were walking in that ballot box saying, do I really want to make it legal for my kids to smoke dope? And in the end, they don't. And so enough of them voted no, that's not going to happen.
Which is interesting because I have 2 of my sons hadn't been registered to vote, and 19 got them to register to vote.
Really, I spoke at a college campus this morning, and there were about 30 kids that I was speaking to, and I asked them, and all of them supported Prop 19, although they all didn't bother to vote. But they all supported Prop 19. And, you know, when I brought up, you know, what were the important propositions, that was the only one that was mentioned, was Prop 19.
But they didn't, because even my daughter called me today, she's just turned 19 2 weeks ago. She said, I just heard Prop 19 was defeated. And I said, yes. And she said, man, I thought that was going to pass. I said, did you register to vote? No. Well, maybe if you had voted, it might have helped.
There you go.
Civics
If she
lesson.
could have made up 560,000 votes.
Not 560.
Yeah, 560,000.
Half a million?
Yeah.
500,000 votes?
Yes.
Between the 2?
Yes. 3.9 million votes? No.
Really?
Have I lied before?
No,
on the
you
show?
have not.
3.9 million no, 3.4 million yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a
So
lot
it would
of
have
people.
taken your daughter and, you know, 499,000 of her closest friends.
But, you know, I always go to the one lesson.
Yeah, let's hold her responsible. Let's hold her
Or
responsible.
educable moments.
That's right. And if you're watching, it was your fault because you would have led your other friends to vote, and we could be smoking a joint while we're doing this show. Now I got water.
No.
Pristine, by the way, but water nonetheless.
All right, number 20, Prop 20.
20, well, okay, we'll get rid of 19, sadly. 20 was, I think, an important one. We were just talking about how polarized both of the parties are. And so what we're hoping for is, with redistricting, is that we get honest districts in the state of California. What that means is they're not gerrymandered. They're not put together by the parties to guarantee that they continue to win. So what would happen ideally is that you would have a district that geographically made sense. One that was the eastern Ventura County, or the San Fernando Valley is split up into 4 districts. Like right now, for example, the districts cross over from Ventura County to LA County. They jump over land in Lancaster, and there's a little one, I forget which number it is, I'm embarrassed about that, but it runs up from Santa Monica up and through Oxnard and pretty much kind of does the coast.
Sheila Kuehl's.
Yeah, Sheila Kuehl.
And this is going to be a 14-person panel.
14-person,
6?
it's 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, and 4 nonpartisan.
Okay, I thought it was 6
So,
and 2. So
yeah, it's 5, 5, and 4. And so what happens?
How does one get onto that?
You know, I believe that there's an application process that happens.
Wouldn't that be fascinating?
Yeah, it would be fascinating to be a part of that.
And they get like 6 months to figure it out?
You know what? I haven't read that
Yeah,
yet.
and
All
I'd
I
be
know is that if
curious.
they take it out of the hands of the state legislature, it has to be better. If it was monkeys throwing at dartboards, I'm in. You know, whatever it might be. I've often thought all they should do, because there are a number of software programs out there that break up sales territories for companies. And they do it based on the most logical and cost-effective way to break up a territory. Because you don't want your sales guy handling LA, San Diego, and Salt Lake City.
Right.
You know, so they have these programs that break these up. I thought, well, that would be great. We'll just call it, 80 sales territories for the state assembly and 40 sales territories for state senate, and we'll let Fred's sales software figure it out. But we get it out of the hands of the 120 people we send to Sacramento, I think we're going to be much better off.
It'll be interesting.
So we will find out. And now we're doing it for state assembly, state senate, and Congress.
Right.
That's what Prop 20 gave us, is we're going to carve up the districts for Congress. So all those people who hold what are called a safe seat,
All bets are off.
all bets are off come 2 years down the road. So it's going to be fun to watch.
So 21 was the fee.
21 was the fee,
$18.
which got smoked, by the
I
way.
was shocked.
We
at
don't
that.
like parks. It turns out we're not
That's-
that big a fan of
But
parks.
I was shocked. I thought all I mean,
Now, you're not going to believe me, but 4.2 million people voted no on this, and only 3 million people voted. It was 58-42 on Prop
that's
21.
astonishing to me. Because we are planet friendly. The greenhouse
But you
gas
know
and
what?
all
I
that.
think in this case, and this will, it's hard for me to do this without giving an opinion, so I will. I think it was a good thing that Prop 21 was killed. I love parks. Don't misunderstand me. Bears and butterflies and grass, I'm in. And $20 a year, who cares? But this was an entry into the car tax.
I know you said that.
they called it a
but
fee.
do you think the average voter?
I think they
extrapolated
figured it
that
out, because
too?
I don't think that 4 million people are not willing to pay a couple of bucks to keep the state parks going. Again, I think if you walked up to Californians and just walked up to them and said, do you think that marijuana should be legal for adults in the state of California? I think more than 50% of the people would say yes. I think if you walked up to the people of the state of California and said, do you believe it's worth $20 a person to keep the state parks open and safe throughout the next couple of years?
And get to use them unlimited.
And get to use that unlimited. I think the
For free.
majority of the people in the state of California would say
That's
yes.
why I was surprised.
But I think the people of the state of California are getting wiser. I think they're starting to figure out that they pose these as these simple yes-no questions, but they're actually more complex. They realize, I'm opening the door to unlimited car taxes, and I might not be so fluffy and friendly about the next one.
And I didn't get that concept even when you talked about it, because I thought, well, this is a
'Cause I didn't do my
one-time
job.
fee. $18, and you're talking about parks. You're not talking about cars. You're just talking about a car that's going into a park. So
Yes.
that's why you're doing that. But obviously, the
The
conspiracy
good people
theory.
of the state of California saw their way clear to kick this one back out on the street. Or maybe we're just so cheap we don't care about the parks. Maybe we're not
Or the
willing to throw a
economy or
$20 bill
something.
in. You know what? 20
Well-
bucks is a lot of money to an awful lot of people.
And I know I'm speaking to a really small segment of our viewers, but Measure H didn't pass either, and that was to help the schools.
We're kind of rejecting adding, we don't want
And
people
another
going in
thing,
our
and
wallet.
another thing.
Yeah, we don't want people going in our wallet anymore. When we talk about some more of the propositions, we'll be able to see that.
Okay, so we're gonna take a quick break again, and then we will bang out 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27.
See what
When
she
we
did
come,
there?
when we come right back. You're watching the Maria Sanchez Show with Scott Harris, and thank you so much. The Maria Sanchez Show is about the county, by the county, and for the county. Whether we are simulcasting from the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library,
You won't believe it, darling. They're
checking in with the leaders of our communities,
first-time callers. They love Maria. That's why they keep saying, and we're gonna
hearing from our elected officials,
but we're gonna get close.
helping to promote public safety,
She's going strong.
preparedness,
Maria Sanchez. This
and
is
wellness.
the show, darling. She'll give you something.
We are here for the needs of Ventura County.
She's gonna help you.
The Maria Sanchez Show is also about entertainment and events,
She'll give you something to talk about. Call in the show.
sharing information, creating awareness,
Yeah, yeah.
and supporting those in need. Join us as we rewrite the rules of local television on The Maria Sanchez Show at www.kadYtv.com.
And damn, I'm going to give my opinions now.
We're back. Hi, welcome to Live TV and The Maria Sanchez Show. It's funny, we had Mark Lund in studio on Monday, and for whatever reason, and it wasn't a technical issue, but we were laughing before, as the cameras started rolling. And we were at the Government Center last night. Mark said people were watching, and they said that they could hear us laughing prior to the show starting. And they said, "What a great way to start a program."
That is a great way.
They
And
liked
it's,
it.
and it's not canned laughter,
Right.
which is even better.
Yeah. So we're with Scott Harris, our political correspondent. We're speaking about the elections, of course, that just happened yesterday. And Scott, I also do want to say that Saturday, as you well know, we were at the Reagan Presidential Library for Sheriff Bob Brooks' retirement party, and your wife Randy did amazing job with pulling that off.
Well,
And,
she would want me to be very clear that a lot of people were involved in that. So
That's very kind
thank
of
you
you.
very
Yes.
much. But there were a lot of people involved in
Of
that.
course, as with any event, but
and it was,
my
you know what?
goodness.
And again, that was a tough battle. For those that follow politics, the Jeff Dean, Dennis Carpenter battle was a very tough battle, and we don't need to get into it. But regardless of what side you were on that, Sheriff Brooks did a heck of a job for this community for 37 years.
Right.
I mean, we live in a very safe community, and in large part it's through the sheriff. And hopefully Sheriff Dean will do just as good or better job as Sheriff Brooks did. But it was an honor to be able to say goodbye to him in the fashion that we did on Saturday night. And you were there for part of the little private thing they had up front, which was just fantastic.
Mhm.
You know, to
And
spend
it's,
time.
by the way, it's on our archive, so
That's right, you
get
can-
to see
you can watch it.
a peek of it too, and you get to actually see Randy Harris as well, because I insisted that she come and talk to us for
Oh,
a
she'll
little
be
bit.
so pleased that you brought this up in another segment. I'll be sure she watches this tonight while I practice
Because
sleeping on the
she
couch.
is one of those, and our world is a better place for people like this. Randy toils anonymously behind the scenes and tirelessly, and there are a lot of people that do that in our county, which is why our county works as well as it does.
We are very fortunate, County.
And that's why we call it Mayberry, so thanks to that. So Prop 22,
Prop 22, again, I'm going to applaud the people of the state of California. Of course, it's because they voted the way I thought they should. I guess that makes sense. But and you can challenge me on this, but 4.2 million people voted yes on Prop 22, and only 2.7 voted no. And basically what this said was, if we as the people decide that we want money to go into transportation, redevelopment, or local government projects and services, we don't want the state taking that money. The state's been using that to try to Band-Aid up some of the problems that they have, their $20 billion hole. And we've been saying, no, wait a second, we voted for that money to go to redevelopment or transportation or whatever it is, and that's where we want it to go.
Right.
And we don't want you to be able to just take it willy-nilly.
Right.
And 61% to 39% upheld that. So now, it'll take the state a few months to figure out how to get around Prop 22, and they will, because they control the purse strings. You know, the taxes go through Sacramento and then back down to the cities, so it's going to be hard for us to actually get the money. But in theory, the law is on the books that stops them from doing that.
can't put your hand in the cookie jar.
We would like to think that that's the case.
Yeah. And number 23,
23 was a big one, one of the more controversial ones.
Fran Pavley.
Fran Pavley's AB 32, which we talked about at length, and you can go back. Fantastic archives here at KDY-TV. But bottom line is that the people of California, in strong fashion, 61 to 39%, did not want to basically overturn AB 32. They said, you know what, we'll trade manufacturing jobs today for green jobs tomorrow, which is really what it boiled down to.
Which I was surprised at as well.
I was a little
because
surprised
it's-
too, because so many of us are out of work.
And it's forward thinking.
It's forward
It's
thinking.
not about today, it's about tomorrow.
And it's green versus current jobs. There's a lot of stuff going on about that.
Plus, it was a little confusing. You had to vote no to keep AB 23 or 32 in existence.
Yes.
Meaning a yes vote wasn't yes to, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was a
one
little-
of those,
I think the proponents of AB 32, so the people that were against Prop 23, did a very good job of painting the other side negatively by pointing out that the majority of the money, and it did, came from two oil companies out of Texas. And because we now consider big business to be a pejorative in this state,
Right.
all we had to say was all the money's coming from big business. Oh my God, well whatever the proposition is, it can't be good, so we'll just vote the other way.
Right.
So they did a good job. It was a good marketing job, and it passed in flying colors. So this is something that Fran Pavley had originally written, and Governor Schwarzenegger, I think it's his legacy piece. He wants to go down as being, you know, the most forward-thinking governor in the history of the world, and you know, we will know for a while whether this works or not, but we are forcing the state to head down that road a little bit, so we'll see what happens. Now, whether you support it or not, now you just have to hope it works.
Right.
Because you have it, so there's no reason now to root against it.
24.
24 repeals legislation that would allow businesses to lower their tax liabilities. This one, I think, was the most surprising one for me, in that it did not pass.
Right.
58%.
Another convoluted.
Convoluted one. And so now what happens is we did not repeal this legislation, so businesses get to hold on to their tax credits.
Right.
So basically, in the very simplified version, larger businesses are now going to pay less money in taxes.
Well, they're going to get the same tax
They're going
breaks
to
as they
continue
had.
to get
Right.
the same tax breaks. I didn't think this was going to work.
Mhm.
I really didn't, and I never would have guessed 58 to 42. So again, I'm trying to figure out if it was so confusing that the people of California didn't know what they were voting for, or if they really feel like, you know what, these companies earn that money, they ought to be able to keep it. Because I haven't had that sense in the state of California recently that's what's going on.
Well, and to continue to stimulate our economy, we don't want companies leaving, and if this is going to help them stay.
But this is showing an understanding that if you tax corporations, it discourages job growth.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I don't believe that the people of California have really bought into that recently. But based on these numbers,
I know.
They have.
Well, and so you're talking sophisticated. You were
I would
talking
like
educated.
I would like to think so.
And
I would
then
like to think so.
26.
Well, are we skipping 25?
Oh, I'm sorry,
Only
25.
because it's the most painful one for
No.
me, or did you just want to skip it?
No, I was looking at 25.
All right, well, 25 is interesting, and you know what? I mean, 25 in the simplest terms is we can now pass a budget of 50% instead of 2/3. I mean, that's the bottom line.
And they're thinking that that's going to stop the
Yeah, and I
delay.
actually think we ought to talk about this more when we talk about the statewide offices, the governor and lieutenant governor and whatnot, because I think it's actually directly related to that. But what happens now is Republicans that are nominated, that are elected to state senate, state assembly, don't have to go to Sacramento anymore. There's nothing for them to do, because the Democrats are in complete control of the House, of the Assembly and the Senate, and they can now pass a budget without Republicans. They don't need a single Republican vote.
Now, you're saying now. In
Now.
other words, you're being somewhat facetious.
Well,
Because
actually-
you said it was such a deadpan delivery that I just wanted to...
I'm pretty good at that, right? I've been
In
working
other
on that.
words, what Scott's saying is that because the Democrats are in the majority, they don't need to go across the aisle at all whatsoever, because they have the simple majority to pass that.
To pass the state budget.
Unless it has to do with taxes.
Yeah, so what they'll do is they'll play games and call them fees.
Okay.
So that doesn't, the bottom line is that, now the argument in favor of saying that the 2/3 is it makes the minority partner, which in California is Republicans, relevant. The argument against it is there are only 47 states don't have this, so why did we have to have it different? And Republicans weren't using it as a principled issue, they were using it to sell their vote. Okay, you need my vote to break this, so I need a new bridge in my county, or a
Right.
new school, or money for the whatever. So, it was horse trading. You'll find the cynical side from both teams. But the bottom line now is, and we'll talk about this more than statewide, is the Democrats have all of the major state offices, control the state assembly, control the state senate. They can pass the budget without a Republican participation. So for at least the next 2 years, the Democrats are absolutely in control of the state of California, for better or for worse. If you believe the Democrats have better ideas on how to run the state, this is your glory time.
Right.
If you believe the Democrats are going to screw the state up, as conservatives tend to believe, this is the time that they're going to fail. And what you're hoping for is that 2 years from now will happen in California what happened in the rest of the country, which is, wait a second, you guys didn't do anything you promised.
Right.
The interesting part for Jerry Brown is there's no excuses now.
So on to 26, if we can quickly.
Absolutely.
Again, 2/3.
Again, 2/3. And this one passed a little closer, 53 to 47. And this one said, you know what, we don't want you to be able to raise some taxes and some fees without our permission, and our permission requires 2/3. So it's consistent in that in most cases what we're trying to do is clamp down and not let the legislature make huge decisions without us. The part that was inconsistent was 25, because we're saying do the budget, go ahead and have a good time with that. But on the other things, we're saying like Prop 21 and now Prop 26, we're saying no, we want to be in charge. We don't want to give you more money, and we don't want to make it easier for you to charge us more.
And along that line with 27, we were consistent in that we wanted the redistricting to happen.
Yeah, 27 was
And
one of those.
Again.
Yeah.
So,
If you believed in 20,
I'm
you'll be
actually-
happy with the results of 27, which, again, were dominant. It was 59 to 41. So I think that the votes, I don't agree with all of the votes that happened, meaning that's not the way I voted on online propositions, but I see evidence of more of an educated electorate than I have seen in an awful lot of years based on the way this went.
and I would concur with you on that, and that is heartening in my...
That is heartening. Back to your let's get them registered, let's get them voting. If they're going to spend this kind of time and understand the complexities of these things, then I think it'd be great. Then I would rather have more educated voters out there.
Right. We will be right back. We're going to go through the top state winners in that regard, and we'll wrap up our discussion about midterm elections 2010. You're watching the Maria Sanchez Show. We'll be right back. The Maria Sanchez Show is about the county, by the county, and for the county. Whether we are simulcasting from the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library, checking in with the
So that
leaders
would
of our
be my
communities.
deep down personal opinion on every single thing. Every candidate. Now, on my way up, they still had not declared for Attorney General.
Hearing from our
Yeah.
elected officials, helping to promote public safety, preparedness, and wellness. We are here for the needs of Ventura County. The Maria Sanchez Show is also about entertainment and events, sharing information, creating awareness, and supporting those in need. Join us as we rewrite the rules of local television on The Maria Sanchez Show at www.kadytv.com.
Between Linda Parks and Roger Strickland.
We're back. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch kadytv.com. We have coming up tomorrow the founders and the creators of the Rubicon Theater visiting with us. They're talking about a special concert they're having as well as their season that's unfolding. And then on Friday we have our pet correspondent visiting with us as she does every Friday. Last Friday was her first visit. Her name's Nina Rubin. She brought in her 5 poochies. They were right here for the entire segment. She is passionate about adoption and rescue and all kinds of animals, so she really brings a lot to the program. And in that regard, we have Scott Harris with us, our political correspondent.
I'm the rescue correspondent.
the same passion he brings. It's another P. It's politics, not pets. And Scott, again, thank you so much for making
We have a
the
rescue
time.
tortoise on
Do
our
you?
property.
Aw.
We are an official tortoise rescue site by the Fish and Game in the state of California.
Because I do know, I don't know if you remember that story where the tortoise got mangled, someone knifed it and
Yeah,
stuff in Santa Barbara.
yes.
There are tortoise rescues.
There are tortoise rescue centers all over.
Yeah.
Anyway, not why we're here. That's
Yeah.
Friday's segment.
Yeah.
But you know, if she can't make it one Friday, have me. We'll talk
Why does that
tortie.
not surprise
We'll
me?
talk tortie. All right, so
Talk
we're
torts.
gonna talk torts, not turtles, which are water ones. Tortoises, which are desert ones. So we're going to talk about the statewide offices, which will be kind of fun. Might as well start at the top, which was Jerry Brown, and he trounced Meg Whitman. Apparently, $141 million does not buy the governorship of the state of California. So I mean, it is so fascinating. You know, Jerry Brown, it's his second time through. His dad was governor, you know, before him. So we've had a lot of Browns, you know, in the last 4 years. And he won huge. I mean, the state left no doubt that they wanted him to be the governor, at least given those two choices. And so, you know, we'll see what happens. I mean, the last time he was in, he was young. I think he made some mistakes. He acknowledged that he made some mistakes. The theory is that he's going to not duplicate those mistakes. And, you know, we will see what happens.
You have got to admit, he was, in one of his debates, so ribald about, you know, when I was 36, I was closing up the bars. Now I've got a wife and kids. I'm not going to be doing that.
Exactly. I laugh with my wife sometimes and say, you know, when we were first married, we were closing up bars, and now we're closing up Home Depot. I'm not really sure that that's, you know, that we're, I don't know what the
You
next
wild and
step
crazy
is in that.
kids.
Yeah, exactly. And we're asking them to close earlier so we don't have to stay quite as late. But he absolutely trounced Meg Whitman. It was $4 million to $3 million in rough numbers.
The people spoke.
The people spoke. So, you know, back to what we were talking about before is, you know, we have absolutely put the Democrats in charge in this state. We counter to what the rest of the country did.
Right.
We said, you know what? No, we want Democrats to run the state of California.
We're blue?
And we're blue. And we are bright blue. We are deep blue going into this next year. So what you have is you have Jerry Brown won as governor, and that was a big name deal. Gavin Newsom, who originally ran for governor and was supported by Bill Clinton, and then withdrew, got his first poll numbers back and said, wait a second, the good people in California don't want me. So he ran for lieutenant governor, which is really, I mean, it's just a spot that you kind of wonder about.
A figurehead.
Yeah, it's really a figurehead, you know, but he ran against Abel Maldonado, who was the sitting lieutenant governor, and he beat him 50 to 49, which is huge in a statewide election. So Gavin Newsom, who's most famous, is you know, the mayor of San Francisco, and legalizing for a short period same-sex marriage in San Francisco.
And having the affair with his aide's wife.
Yeah, well,
That's
I wasn't
a
going to bring
little
that up,
thing.
but if we're gonna go People Magazine, yeah, apparently Gavin.
And apparently that doesn't matter.
I think it was maybe a reason that Bill Clinton endorsed Gavin Newsom. Secretary of State Deborah Bowen, who I like. Deborah Bowen is the sitting Secretary of State. She's the incumbent, and she won. She beat a very sharp guy, Damon Dunn, out of Orange County. I think Damon will be back at statewide office. This was a good one for him. We talked before about people kind of getting out there, getting beat up once, and getting some name recognition. I think that's what's happening to Damon Dunn. There was really no reason to vote Deborah Bowen out of office. She's done a fine job.
Well, as a little bit of an insight too, what I noticed, it's not that they're sacrificial lambs per se, but it's how well do they show?
Yes.
And how well are they vetted?
Right.
And are those skeletons gonna come out or not? And
Yep.
maybe there aren't the skeletons. And if you get a decent amount, you're still considered a winner because you went in the game and you made it through the game.
Absolutely. Well, that's why, like, when you look at the race that happened, Meg Whitman had a couple embarrassing things that came out, with her maid and different things. Well, you didn't have that with Barbara Boxer.
Right.
Because she's been vetted. She's been 28 years in office. I mean,
Right.
she's had every exam you could have, and there weren't going to be any new surprises.
Right.
She didn't even really need to campaign, in my view. Everybody knows what Barbara Boxer represents, so either you like her or you don't. You're going to vote for her or you don't. Attorney General is an interesting one. It's the only one where Republicans have a chance of winning a statewide office. It's a virtual tie. Nobody's declared yet. With 100% of the precincts, Cam Harris has 3,292,000 votes, and Steve Cooley has 3,277,000 votes. So this may be a recount, maybe some different things going on. We'll find out. That's one of the ones you got to follow for a few days to discover. Treasurer, Bill Lockyer won, was the incumbent, and won huge, 56-36 over Mimi Walters, so that one was done. Controller, locally, Tony Strickland got spanked, 19 points by John Chang. John is the incumbent again. He's the current controller. And John's an interesting guy because he's the one that's in the position of not paying people when we run out of money. So whenever we run out of money, John says, I'm sorry, I can't write any more checks, I don't have money. And governor says, well, find some money. Where is it? I've looked under the couch cushions. There's nothing left. I rang up my personal credit card. I got nothing. I got to issue IOUs. So John kept his job, kept it huge. And Tony Strickland, who has never seen a job he didn't want to run for, ran for that one. So
And was endorsed by Meg.
yes,
And maybe
yes.
that was part of the problem. Huh?
So I imagine Tony's at home right now with a hat with all the different offices in it, and he'll be pulling one out soon, and he should be announcing the next day or two. Insurance Commissioner Dave Jones won, again huge, 50-38. Another Democrat. These are all Democrats. And Barbara Boxer trounced Carly Fiorina by 9 points.
What do you think her hospitalization had to do with that, or not?
Not 9 points worth.
Yeah.
Not 9 points worth. So she was going to get beat either way. If it had been 1 or 2 points, I might have thought. But it didn't get much news. It didn't make front page. It was page 3, page 4 stuff, which I thought was very professional of the newspapers to do that, to not try to make it into some big, huge deal. But on the other hand, it was news. She's a candidate and she was in the hospital.
Well, and you have to imagine how serious the situation must have been because...
For her to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for that momentum and that timing to be in the...
It couldn't have been much worse for her.
And she really must have been very, very, very threatened.
She must have been. And then you look at how strong she must have been to come right back out. There appeared to me to be nothing going on. She carried herself like a pro. She was very, but she got spanked by 700,000 votes. So the trip to the hospital didn't cost her 700,000 votes.
Yeah.
So as you go down the list, with the exception of Attorney General, and we don't know yet, that could go Democratic. The Democrats took every single statewide office. They control the Assembly. They control the state Senate. They get to do what they want to do for the next 2 years.
It'll be interesting.
It will be interesting.
The, like you said, I think these election results nationally, I don't know if you saw President Obama's press conference this morning.
I did not yet.
He was definitely a more modest, moderate, I don't want to, let's see, what would be, humble man. Then,
Well, he's been humbled.
Yeah.
I mean, again, if you support President Obama or not, a lot less people do now than they did 2 years ago.
but what I was saying is that who knows 2 years from now if we've got the Democrats in charge of California.
Right.
If, God forbid, we don't come around and we don't have better employment figures and the foreclosures don't stop and all that stuff.
Yep.
Can't imagine.
Well, and it's one of those, be careful what you wish for, because Democrats have what they wanted now. I mean, and by the way, it's exactly what the Republicans would have wanted for their party if they could have.
Right?
Right? You control every major state office, you control the Assembly, you control the state Senate, you've got both senators. So you've got everything. You run the state. So 2 years from now, the Republicans don't even really have to run. It's going to be a referendum on the Democrats. If people are back at work, if inflation is not booming, if foreclosures have ended, Democrats will continue to roll in
Right.
the state.
Right.
If we're still out of work, if we're still watching our neighbors' homes being taken away, if inflation's starting to jump, the Republicans can pick who they want because the Democrats will be kicked out.
And we have just a little bit of time before we get into our marketing segment. Let's talk a little bit about Jeff Grell.
Well, I'm happy to do that. This one I can't keep my opinion out of, so I'm just going to be very candid about it. I'm a huge Jeff Gorell supporter. Now, I'm a Jeff Gorell supporter for a number of reasons. He's a personal friend, both he and Laura, so I'm absolutely a supporter. We hosted his victory party last night, so as disclaimers go, or full disclosure, let me be very clear about that. But putting that aside, there are things about Jeff Gorell that I think are fantastic. Is that he is the only Republican candidate that was endorsed by the unions in the state of California, which says a lot to me about the possibility of bipartisanship. He was also the only Republican running for Assembly or Senate that was pro-choice, publicly pro-choice. So you look at Jeff and you think, you know what, he went out on a limb early on and still held on and won his seat. And for those who didn't know, that was kind of an interesting weekend in that Saturday, Jeff announced that he's being deployed to Afghanistan for a year. He leaves in March and he'll be in Afghanistan serving active duty for a year.
Because he's Navy Reservist.
He's Navy Reserves. He's a lieutenant commander in the Navy Reserves, third generation Navy officer. He's already done a tour in Afghanistan and he's going back for another year. It wasn't his choice. As a reservist, you get called up. You don't get to say, you know, it's inconvenient timing for me. I got an election on Tuesday. They call you.
I can't believe that there's not some dispensation that they give.
No dispensation. No, nothing.
It's like, wait a second.
They don't want to hear about it. And what's interesting is Jeff is going to be in Afghanistan for a year. He leaves in March, which of course is very tough on Jeff and his family and all the good things. But I think it reflects on Jeff. The man serves. He serves the country. He serves the district. We'll be at a little bit of a disadvantage for a year with Jeff being gone. But all of his legislation will be introduced before the end of February, which is the end of the legislative period anyway. And then he will have friends in the Assembly that will shepherd his bills through. So we should be okay there. And looking long term, I'd rather have Jeff gone for a year than the alternative. So it's going to be a fun time. He's in Sacramento now. He left this morning, and he'll be up there for a few days. And I think that there's a chance, because Jeff is a moderate. I mean, he's a good centrist guy. I think there's a chance that he could be kind of in the front part of the wave of sending up moderates from both parties. I mean, it's not just Republicans. I mean, in 2000 when we had open primaries, if you remember 1998, we voted in open primaries in the state of California. 2000 was the only election where we had them, and then the Supreme Court took them away. But in 2000, we sent up moderates. We sent up guys like Joe Canciamilla out of Pittsburgh, a moderate Democrat, Keith Richmond out of the Valley, a moderate Republican, and there was compromise. There were things happening. And it was very exciting. No matter what party you were in, it was. So I'm hoping that that's what Jeff can do. And honestly, just as a friend, I want to say congratulations. I'm so proud of him for having done this.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for asking and giving Jeff those 2 minutes.
Yeah. And thank you for your time. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have Marketing 101, which may sound dull, so I'm going to rephrase that. We're going to have Marketing by Mustang Marketing. That would be Scott Harris. So just a quick break, and we'll be right back. Thank you for watching the Maria Sanchez Show.